Hello, and welcome to the comic adventures of Silly and Prism. This is a comic that explains some of the stuff we're going to learn in the geometry unit. Now, for students in my class, we will be following the comic, but at the same time, this is to learn. So, when you hear this sound, that means it's time to write something down. It'll kind of pull you back away from the comic and maybe take some notes. And hi, welcome to the show. I'm Silly, the good-looking one, and I'm Prism, the smart one. You know, these folks might want to know about me. Hear about you? Please! You are so boring that your guidance counselor falls asleep listening to your problems. Your wildest fantasy has elevator music as the soundtrack. The audience obviously wants to hear about me. Silly, they want to hear about me. No one wants to hear about you. You're so wussy, you make Justin Bieber look like Chuck Norris. Look at all those feminine curves. You go, girl. We can all see that you have two parallel congruent bases that are circles. How boring. Boring? What kind of base do you have? Look at that base. I'm a polyhedron that has two parallel and congruent bases. This base just happens to be a beautiful square. Look at it. Alright, students, now take a time out here. We've been using some words that maybe we need to go over. First of all, we have base, which of course means the bottom. So when we're talking about a cylinder, the bases, and bottom can kind of mean the top, but the cylinder, the base is a circle. Now, if you're talking about a prism, this one's all twisted up, but the bases are, in this case, it's a rectangular prism, so they're rectangles or squares. Now, since Silly and Prism are three-dimensional objects, at least in their world they are, three-dimensional objects, when they have a base, the base is going to be a shape. It's not like when you have a base of a triangle, it's just a line. The base of a three-dimensional figure is a shape, so the base of the cylinder is a circle. The base of the rectangular prism is, of course, a rectangle. Yeah, maybe we should talk to the audience. Thank you, thank you. Yes, I'm here with the lovely Connie the Cone. Thank you, everybody, thank you. No, really, thank you. I'm here with the lovely Connie the Cone. As you can see, she has a single circle as a base. Okay, so who are we talking about here? This lovely Connie the Cone here. Do you see her? Lovely. She is a cone. So the cone has a circular base and it's kind of dotted line to show like what would be behind what you can see. As you can see, she has a single circle as a base, and she comes to a point. Watch out, boys. Yes, well, that's all great. But at this point in the show, audience, it's time to take some notes. What I'd like you to do is start by drawing some shapes. So if you could take a second to draw Connie the Cone. You want to give her face, feet, legs, arms, all that? Go ahead. But what I'm looking for is a circular base that comes to a point. Please draw that figure and label cone. That'll be our first one. We'll talk about other shapes in just a second. Pause if you need to draw your figure. Don't get too excited, Prism. You've got as much chance with her as the Detroit Lions have of winning the Super Bowl. Can't you see that you're too short for her? You're so short you pose for trophies. You're so short you can see your feet on your driver's license. And Silly is here with Perry, the square pyramid. He has a square base, and not all pyramids have square bases, but all his faces of this pyramid are triangles that meet at a vertex. Okay, audience, what I'd like you to do is try to draw Perry the pyramid and just label him as a pyramid. Pause if you need to. Wait a second. Vertex? Face? What are you talking about? Do you mean your ugly face? I mean, you're so ugly. If I put your face in dough, you can make monster cookies. Well, I thought you were the smart one, Prism. Let me show you. Let me explain a few things. First of all, Prism over there is just one kind of prism. He's a polyhedron that has two parallel congruent bases. His faces are all squares, so he could also be called a cube. Each of his sides is called a face. Two faces meet to make an edge, and two edges meet to make a vertex. See for yourself. Oh, so embarrassing for poor Prism. But audience, now's the time to write something down. Now, if you could, please label this rectangular prism. And give yourself a little bit of space. This is called a rectangular prism. But what I want you to also note is what I have here. So label each part. So the side of the prism is called an edge. The shape that would form the side, this square here, or rectangle, depending on what kind of prism it is called a face. And where the two edges meet is called a vertex. It's like a corner. Now, in case if you missed it, this is a polyhedron, a three-dimensional shape, and we mentioned that this top base and the bottom base of prism are parallel, of course, meaning that they will never touch. This is something that you'll see in polyhedron, is that the bases should, in a regular polyhedron, the bases should be parallel. And I believe you have already taught about the audience about your base. You mean the part of the polyhedron that smells like you, silly? I'm not saying you smell bad, but you so stank, you make right guard call for backup. Oh my. Well, back to the audience. Here we have another kind of prism. This is Timmy, the triangular prism. Okay, guys, now it's your turn. What I'd like you to do is label this triangular prism. That's right here. That's Timmy. Okay, he's called a triangular prism because of his base. His base is a triangle. Timmy the triangular prism has two parallel and congruent triangular bases. So like I was saying, these bases that form the top and the bottom, they are parallel, and of course they have to be congruent or else it wouldn't be a regular polyhedron. And here we have Steve the sphere. Audience, can you label Steve? He's a sphere. Looks like it's just a circle, but because he's supposed to be three-dimensional. So if you would like, you can draw the circle that forms the cross section. It makes him look three-dimensional. Wave to the audience, Steve. He's like a three-dimensional circle. Each point on the surface is the exact distance, equidistance, away from a single point in the center of a sphere. Now that is a word I'd like you to be familiar with. Equidistant means it's equal distance. So every single point that's on the surface of this sphere is the exact same distance as from the point in the center of the circle of the sphere. Didn't the court order you to be equidistant from some young female recently? They call that a restraining order. Young female? It was your mother, and it was for my benefit because I can't stand her smell. But now we have come to the intermission. It's the audience's chance to be equidistant from silly stank. Please enjoy the homework we have made for you while I tweet with Chad Ochocinco backstage. See you in a few. So, we'll see you next time on The Comic Adventures of Silly and Prism.